this was an election, two decisive factors. The biggest one, I think, was Brexit. That's what wiped out our support in our traditional heartlands. And I think it's not just about uncertainty about leaving. It's the fact that over the last 40 years, under Labour and Conservative governments, millions of good jobs in manufacturing have been wiped out. People are angry. And therefore, just like they elected Trump in America in those traditional Democrat areas where their manufacturing had been wiped out. But the other big factor in all of this was clearly the lies and smears about Jeremy Corbyn. I've known Jeremy for 45 years. He's been side by side with everybody who's campaigning against racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and yet the media was filled with all these lies about the Labour Party is an institutionally anti-Semitic body. Well, I tell you this, all my Jewish friends who are in the Labour Party, not a single one of them can remember in their entire time in the party an anti-Semitic incident.
We see, this is extraordinary because...
Jeremy Corbyn
hang on, let me just put this
for anti-Semitism
apart from the fact that Jeremy Corbyn apologised for it, let me put this to you. You yourself had to quit the Labour Party, right, because of something you said about Hitler and Zionism, but you did it in the context of defending Naz Shah, a Labour MP, who, by her own admission, had made anti-Semitic comments, which you said were not anti-Semitic. And I put it to you, Ken Livingstone, one of the reasons you've never heard or seen any anti-Semitism in the party is, even when it's staring you in the face, as it was with Naz Shah, you said it wasn't anti-Semitic, even when she admitted it was. Could that be the problem? You don't see it when it's staring you in the face.
If all the things you have just said were true, yes, it would be appalling record on my part.
What was untrue?
What was untrue was the fact that I said Naz Shah had made a mistake. She'd said something she shouldn't,
you said
but she wasn't personally anti-Semitic.
You said it wasn't anti-Semitic.
No, I didn't say it wasn't anti-Semitic. No, I'm sorry, I remember what I said. Equally, I mean, I've had to put up with nearly 40 years of lies and smears. I've not just been accused of being anti-Semitic.
I've been accused of being corrupt, lying, and I didn't lie.
Dodging.
I put it to you. You talk about people lying and smearing you. I've just put to you a series of facts, and you say I'm lying.
I've had this for nearly 40 years.
But what I just said to you was true. You did quit the Labour Party. You quit the Labour Party over an anti-Semitism row. You did it in the context of defending somebody who, by her own admission, had been anti-Semitic. And yet here you are saying you've never heard anyone in the party ever be anti-Semitic. The very person you were defending that cost you your position in the Labour Party admitted she said anti-Semitic stuff.
What's the point of having me on your programme if you don't let me speak?
Well, you can't unfairly call people liars when they're presenting to you a series of facts.
Well, let me tell you the other lie you just told. I quit the Labour Party because this was being dragged out to undermine Jeremy. And the reason was nothing to do with what I'd said about Naz Shah. It was back on that day in April 2016 when the Labour MP, John Mann, then a Labour MP, with a camera crew in tow, turned up and started shouting in my face that I was a Nazi apologist. He then went on air and claimed that I'd said Hitler was a Zionist. Well, if I'd said Hitler was a Zionist, I wouldn't just have apologised. I'd have been off to my doctor to check I wasn't in the first stage of dementia. How can anyone say a man who loathed and feared Jews all his life?
What was it I lied about?
I'm answering the question.
No, tell me what I lied about. You accused me of lying about you. You accused me of lying.
I'm just telling you.
What was the lie?
This is what... No, there's no point being on this programme if you keep interrupting your guests.
Tell me what my lie was, please.
What you just said. I'm just explaining it. I was accused by the Labour MP, John Mann, of being a Nazi apologist. He then claimed that I'd said Hitler was a Zionist. You've just repeated that. That was never true. I never said that.
I didn't say that. You called me a liar. Where did I lie?
If you want to carry on with all this nonsense, or do you want to talk seriously about the problem we've now got?
When someone like you accuses a broadcaster on live television of being a liar, it's up to you to say what the lie was. What was the lie?
And I've just told you. You claimed I'd said Hitler was a Zionist. That was the smear that was stuck all over
I said
the media.
you lost your position
Why haven't
in the
you
Labour
got the
Party.
time to check whether I said that?
You lost your position in the Labour Party over comments you made about Hitler and Zionism, and you did it in the context of defending Labour MP Naz Shah, who, by her own admission, had made anti-Semitic comments. You just said at the start of this interview you've never heard anybody in the Labour Party make anti-Semitic comments, and yet you actually had to quit the party after you were defending somebody who, by her own admission, had made anti-Semitic comments. That's what I said to you. That is all true, Ken Livingstone. And for you to call me a liar, actually, I think is extremely shameful of you.
Because of Naz Shah. I did not quit the party because of Naz Shah. I was being accused of having said Hitler was a Zionist. That was completely untrue. All the media repeated this lie. Not a single one of them ever contacted me to say, did you say Hitler was a Zionist? But this lie went on and on and on.
Yeah.
That's the problem with our media today.
Did you say that Hitler supported Zionism or not?
What I said was, in the 1930s, Hitler supported Zionism, then he went mad and killed 6 million Jews. Yeah. And in the days after that, I had somewhere between 30 and 40 Jewish men and women come up to me on the street saying, why have you been suspended? I know what you said is true. I mean, what's this all about? Okay. Jews know their history. They know that in July 1933, the German Zionists and the Nazi government signed up on an agreement, and over the next 6 years, they worked together to move 60,000 of Germany's Jews to move to the then British colony of Palestine.
Okay, listen, here's the point, Ken. You can dress it up any way you like, but when you say that Jeremy Corbyn was the subject of media lies and smears, and I then present to you a series of entirely accurate statements, and you accuse me of lying, it doesn't really support your view that Corbyn himself was subject to lies. It doesn't help, does it?
Oh, Jeremy's had to put up with all this. He was being denounced that our election manifesto was communistic and so on. The simple fact is the establishment were terrified that if Jeremy and John McDonnell were running a Labour government, they were going to stop all the tax dodging by the billionaires and the corporations. And most economists estimate that here in Britain, corporations and billionaires are paying 130 billion less than they should be paying in tax.
But you say,
John McDonnell were going to crack down on that. Let me finish what I'm saying. If Jeremy and John had clamped down on that, we could have done all the spending we need on education and healthcare and everything else without having to increase taxes on ordinary people.
OK, let me ask you this. Anti-Semitism was a huge problem for Jeremy Corbyn. You say it was grotesquely unfair because he's not anti-Semitic. You've also repeatedly said you've never heard anybody in the Labour Party say anything anti-Semitic. Is that still your position? It is.
Absolutely. I mean, I once, in 1970, had one of my Labour Party members in Norwood make a mildly racist statement denouncing the song Young, Gifted and Black. That's the only racist comment I've ever heard in all my time in the party.
How is it then that in the interview with Vanessa Feltz that caused all the problems that led to you leaving the party, you were asked, do you still maintain that Naz Shah's remarks were not anti-Semitic? And you said no, her remarks were not anti-Semitic, and yet she herself admitted they were anti-Semitic. And I put it to you again. When you hear blatant anti-Semitism, like the stuff that Naz Shah came out with, you don't recognise it. And that is as big a problem for Jewish people in this country as people who do recognise it and say it. It's the same thing. It's blindness. It's blindness to the obvious.
Tell me what Naz Shah said.
No, I'm asking you whether what she said was anti-Semitic, because she said it was.
But, I mean, I can't remember what she said. Tell me what she said.
So you say it wasn't anti-Semitic, but you can't remember what it was?
No, I can't remember what it was, because this is now what?
Well, how do you know it's not anti-Semitic then?
Almost 4 years ago.
How do you know it's not anti-Semitic?
Well, tell me what it is and...
OK, well, to remind
viewers
who may also...
If you tell me what it is, I'll be able to explain to you.
It's staggering, Ken, that you accuse me of lying, and yet when you say that what she said was not anti-Semitic, you can't remember what she said. Isn't that staggering?
No. No, I'm 74 and I'm getting old and doddery. The simple fact
Well, let
is...
Susanna remind you what she said.
OK, so this is from a BBC News article from July 2016. Labour MP Naz Shah has said the comments which saw her suspended from the party were anti-Semitic. Ms Shah apologised in April for online posts, including one suggesting Israel should be moved to the United States. Labour has now reinstated the Bradford West MP, who in her first interview about the controversy blamed her own ignorance. I wasn't anti-Semitic. What I put out was anti-Semitic, Ms Shah told World at One.
You talked about the Jews rallying.
She repeated on her website Finkelstein's picture of Israel as a little state inside the United States of America. But Finkelstein wasn't being anti-Semitic. He was making a joke. And she repeated that, spread it, and didn't make it clear. He was only telling a joke. He wasn't seriously suggesting that everybody should be moved from Israel into the United States of America.
When she apologised for what she said were anti-Semitic comments, you don't think they were anti-Semitic and she shouldn't have apologised, presumably?
No, I mean, I think what Naz Shah was saying, she realised what she'd said was being distorted. It was causing concern in the Jewish community.
She said the comments
she made the apology she did.
She didn't say it was distorted, Ken. You keep coming back to media lies and distortion. She didn't say her comments were distorted. Her comments were reported accurately, and she admitted they were anti-Semitic, although she denied herself being an anti-Semite. Your failure to accept that what she said was anti-Semitic is one of the reasons that the Labour Party has this problem. Jewish people in this country believe that senior Labour figures simply don't see anti-Semitism when it's slapping them in the face.
The chief
like
rabbi,
with what Naz Shah
the chief rabbi, Ephraim Mirvez, said the overwhelming majority of British Jews are gripped by anxiety at the prospect of a Labour government. Do you not think there is an element of denial, Ken Livingstone, about anti-Semitism?
No. The worst aspect of all these lies and smears about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is it's caused genuine concern amongst the Jewish community. And the simple fact is, if you look, in the 8 years I was Mayor of London, anti-Semitic incidents went down by 50%. Under Boris Johnson, they more than doubled. If people are interested in anti-Semitism, why aren't they studying why that happened? Why, if I'm anti-Semitic, was the first decision I made as mayor to appoint a Jewish woman as my deputy? The simple fact is the Labour Party has been the home to the Jewish community for the best part of a century. And the simple fact is that all these lies, and it wasn't just Jeremy being accused of anti-Semitic, he was a pro-terrorist and so on.
Why does he apologise for the level of anti-Semitism in his party? Why did he apologise if there isn't any?
Well, there's bound to be some, because when Jeremy got rid of the old General Secretary and brought in... Let me tell you about it. I mean, when Jeremy Corbyn got rid of the old General Secretary, put him in the House of Lords, brought in a brilliant new one, she got on top of this and scanned everyone's websites, real investigation. Within 3 months, we discovered that 1/20% of Labour Party members had tweeted or said something anti-Semitic. They were suspended, they were expelled. And if it's 1/20%, that does not mean that the Labour Party is institutionally racist.
No, but what it does mean, I think there's well over 100 different instances of Labour Party people, using that phrase as a general term, who have made anti-Semitic comments. That's not a small number of people. It's 136 people are currently being investigated or have been investigated for anti-Semitic comments. That's a lot of people, Ken Livingstone. The fact that you yourself have never heard anyone be anti-Semitic in the party...
That is 1/20% of Labour Party members. We have over 500,000 members. Yes, a couple of hundred have done something they really shouldn't do. They're being disciplined. They're going to be expelled. That does not mean that we are institutionally anti-Semitic.
Just a couple of hundred anti-Semites in a party, and that's fine with you, is it?
No, it's not fine. That's why Jeremy Corbyn's General Secretary was getting them out.
OK, let's go to Caroline Flint. Caroline Flint, you've just heard Ken Livingstone there. I mean, many will look at that, I think many Jewish people will look at that interview in horror, and they'll say they still don't get it. The Labour Party people just don't understand what the problem is. They're staring them in the face.
I think on hearing that, they're right to come to that judgment. And, you know, the denial that people like Ken express about anti-Semitism, about the fact that people didn't buy into the Corbyn project, the politics, the policies, is, to be honest, a classic response of those on the sort of more left wing of our party, when they want to try and put the blame on everybody else, you know, blame the media, blame the establishment, blame this, blame that, blame the other. The truth is that Labour wins elections when we've got a leader that people believe in and a vision that people can buy into.
And Caroline,
and we've done that successfully in the past.
Caroline,
and clearly we're not doing it now.
You've lost your job under this leadership and on this manifesto. Who should be the next leader of your party who could win the next general election? Or do you lack optimism that that's even a possibility at this stage?
Well, I think we need somebody who can certainly lead our party in the right direction, but anybody who gets into an idea that if we pick somebody that everything's going to be all right is kidding themselves. I think we've had too much of the cult of the personality, to be honest, for some time now. But I do think there are potential leaders putting themselves forward. I do think it should be someone north of the Watford Gap and somebody who understands both where Remain voters were coming from, but importantly, Leave voters as well. I'd like to see someone who is actually represents an area and lives in that area. I think that would be worthwhile
do you want to put a name
to
to
as
that?
well. I don't know who I'm going to support. So I was just going to say, sorry, that I haven't sided with anyone at the moment, but interestingly, in I think it was Christmas 2015, when I was having a meal with Charles Clarke, a former Labour minister, and we had this discussion. And at that time, I said, I think people should watch out for Lisa Nandy.
Okay.
Lisa Nandy, the MP for Wigan, I do believe.
We've got to leave it there. Ken Livingstone and Caroline Flint, thank you both very much indeed.